Begin Self-Publishing, episode number 47. Marketing using Pinterest with Jeff Sieh.
Interested in self-publishing but don't know where to start? Want to get your book onto Amazon? Want to hold your paperback book in your hands? Learn how on the Begin Self-Publishing podcast with your host, Tim Lewis.
On today's show, I talked to Jeff Sieh, who is an international speaker about Pinterest and manages the social media accounts for Pinterest and Instagram for Social Media Examiner, which is one of the world's biggest social media blogs. I was lucky enough to see him talk at Social Media Marketing World. I asked him if he wanted to appear on the show, and thankfully he said yes. So without too much ado, we'll go straight into the interview with Jeff. So hi Jeff. What is Pinterest and how does it differ from the other social media network?
Well, Pinterest is what I would classify as a digital pin board. So what that means is you can actually go and you can pin images to a specific board, and they're usually based on interest or something like that. And one of the things that, I think Pinterest is more of like a visual discovery network or a search tool than it is a social media network, because there are some social aspects to Pinterest, like you can make comments and messages to each other, but it's more of a discovery tool. And even, the co-founder of Pinterest says, Pinterest is not about sharing with your friends, it's about saving ideas for your future. So it's more of a place where you gather information and curate content than it is a social media platform, in my opinion.
Okay, so what are the strengths of Pinterest as compared to the other social media networks, for example, Twitter and Facebook and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, one of the things, is a quote by the founder, Evan Sharp, who is a co-founder of Pinterest, and he says, Pinterest is not about sharing with your friends, about saving ideas for your future. So it's a great place for, like, for me, like, I'm a marketer. And the biggest thing that I got interested for Pinterest in the first place was because it drove so much traffic to my website. I had a relatively new blog, and I was listening to a podcast, and there's a lady on there named Cynthia Sanchez who was talking about Pinterest and how it drove traffic. And so that intrigued me, and so I started playing with it. And the story is that I created this secret board, and on Pinterest you can create secret boards that only you and somebody else can share or see. And I was pinning stuff there for my daughter. And I wrote this article about how I pinned I had a secret board for my daughter, and I called it Mainly Pinterest Tips #1, and it did really well. But the point was that I would pin that to Pinterest, and I would start getting traffic back to that article. So compared to other social media networks like Twitter or Facebook, I think that the shelf life for Twitter is like 10 to 15 minutes, and Facebook it's like 45 minutes. Pins on Pinterest last a long time. I'm actually still getting traffic from pins that I pinned when I first started Pinterest like 2 years ago. So it's a really, really cool way to drive traffic to your site.
Okay. But if somebody's not artistic or they're not good at taking photos, then is it really a platform for them to use, or is it only biased towards people who are very good at sort of creating graphic images?
Well, it's pretty funny because I went back and looked at some of my old pins that I first started, and they're really bad. They're really ugly. And the thing is it still drives traffic. If you are a really good photographer or designer, your pin, you kind of have an advantage. But it's with all the new tools like Canva and even, like PicMonkey's another one, it's not that hard to create images for your content. Canva now even has book covers that you can create, and it's amazing the stuff you can create really easily now online. And so the important thing is for like your website or your blog post or your product is to have what we call a pinnable image. And the images that work best on Pinterest are usually in the portrait. They're the taller images. In fact, the size that I have been using for a long time is 735 by 1102, and that was just kind of the recommended pixel size for a pin. And that size really works well. And I put that image on all my blog posts and all my content that I put out there, which allows people when they come to my site, click on my social share button or on that image and pin it to Pinterest, which allows they're saving my content either to read later or they want to collect it for a collection that they wanted to have. And it just I think of it all as like little spider webs driving traffic back to my website. So it's really powerful in that way.
if somebody is like not particularly artistic, but they just have like a logo for their website and they put some text on it, does that sort of pin work, or do you need a bit more effort involved in creating your pinnable images?
You need to have a little more effort. You want to make sure that, it's relevant to the article. So, you could go find that, some people do clip art, but one of the things that's important for Pinterest is because it shows in a feed. So you're seeing all these images kind of go in your Pinterest kind of home feed. And if you have a text overlay, let's say I had, how to make French toast. I'm just made that up. How to make French toast. And you had a picture of French toast. You probably want to put a text overlay on that looks good in some nice, easy to read font. How to make French toast, by Jeff Sieh or whatever, and have that text overlay on that image. And that really makes it stand out and lets you see that in the feed, and it tells exactly what that pin is about and will cause people to click on it a little bit easier.
So what is the best approach at the moment for people who are trying to promote products on Pinterest? I mean, obviously, we've been talking about driving traffic to websites. Would you say that people should have a blog related to what their book or thing is about and then push traffic towards that? Or can you actually push traffic towards people actually buying on, say, Amazon or somewhere?
Well, Pinterest last year has now stripped out all affiliate links. So you can't have affiliate links on Pinterest anymore. Now, Pinterest has recently rolled out what they call buyable pins. And I think right now they're just US based, but I think they're going to the UK very, very soon because they just rolled out what they call promoted pins to the UK. But what you do they have this buyable pins, and so you can actually purchase straight from Pinterest. There's a couple of partners, and they have them listed on their website that allow you to actually have an e-commerce site that ties into Pinterest. And one of them is Shopify, and I can't remember the other one, but a lot of people are using Shopify, and you can purchase right from Pinterest. For a book, what I would probably do if I was an author and I had like an ebook or something that I was trying to sell is I would create an article about the book or about the topic and then create a pin and then point it back to my website where they could purchase it that way. That's the way a lot of people have gone before the buyable pins came out. That's a lot of the way that people would sell stuff on Pinterest. A friend of mine, Elisa Meredith, does a great job, and she will actually, for her clients, she has a client that is a nutritionist or a supplement, and they sell that on their website. But what they have done is she has multiple pins on, how to make a green smoothie and different recipes or different types of smoothies they make. And they all point back to a single page where they have a sign up to get on their email list to get a free recipe book or something like that. And so it's a really good strategy to have multiple pins that come back to the same content to sell or to have people sign up or an opt-in of that sort on their website.
Okay. How much time should people be spending on Pinterest today, or should they be hiring somebody else to do all this Pinterest magic for them?
Well, the thing is, Pinterest, at least for me, Pinterest is one of the easiest networks, I think, to do. Pinterest is made up of mostly of what they call repins. 80% of all the pins on Pinterest are repins. So what that means is when I see something on Pinterest, like I see something, Tim, that you had, and I really liked it, and so I'll repin that to one of my boards, and that's what they count as a repin. So 80% of all the pins on Pinterest are repins. So when you put new content there, I think people are really hungry for it, and it, allows your content to kind of spread quickly. Now, the amount of time to spend on it, it depends on really, how much time you have. I don't have any set times that I do, but I usually pin once in the morning and once in the evening. And I have kind of certain people that I know share really good content, and I check out their boards almost every day. And so I've kind of got a thing where I just kind of, sometime in the morning I go and pin, and then before bed I usually pin again. So I try to touch Pinterest twice a day. They're saying, and it depends on who you listen to, anywhere from 15 to 25 pins per day is what they recommend, and that's repinning other people's content as well as putting some of your own content out there.
Okay. I mean, I think the mistake I've made with my Pinterest account is that I just went back and followed everybody who followed me back. And then I've ended up with this Pinterest feed, which is just full of, rubbish, more or less.
Right.
So I kind of get the impression that you should really just follow the people who you're interested in repinning their stuff. Is that a good idea?
Yeah,
on Pinterest?
And the thing is, and I made the exact same mistake when I first started. I would follow entire people. For example, I followed Peg Fitzpatrick, and I just clicked on, follow her. And what I got is I got everything. So even her hair recipe, how to,
Yeah.
do hair or nails. And I'm not really interested in that. So the thing that you need to do is go back and follow boards that you're really interested in. So like Peg has certain boards, and one of them is like, Instagram tips or blogging tips. Those are the boards I want to follow, not her entire account. And that's a mistake a lot of new people when they come to Pinterest make, is that they just follow, I have a multitude of different types of things on my Pinterest account, everything from social media to wood carving to, manly food. And some people may want my social media tips, but they may not want my, mainly food pins. And so what you need to do is just follow the specific boards that you're interested in from a person and not their entire account.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the good features of Pinterest, in my idea, is that pins all go into different boards and they're about different subject categories. So you can just have basically a board that people can just follow on its own, rather than having to follow all of Jeff C's beard trimming tips or whatever.
Exactly.
You can actually just go on the Pinterest tips on the board, which is a great concept about Pinterest.
Yeah, and Pinterest has a great search tool. So when you are interested in a subject and their Pinterest search it's almost scary, and a lot of times now people are searching on Pinterest before they're going to Google. They're going, especially like food bloggers and stuff and people like that, they'll search on Pinterest for recipes or ideas before they even go to Google, because it's just so easy and they can see what things look like and the search is so good. Pinterest also recently, as of last year, introduced something called visual search. So let's say that you see a image on Pinterest, like it's a big wide shot of like a living room, and there's a couch, there's a table lamp, and there's like maybe a photo behind it on the wall, and say, what if I really like that photo on the wall? Well, you can take this little, it looks like a little magnifying glass, click on that, and then just drag around, almost like you're cropping out an image on like the picture in the background, and it will actually go and search exactly the same types of images that you may be interested in. So what it'll do is say, oh, you like that picture in the background? Here's some images, some pins that fit in that exact same category. And it's really, really cool, especially for like e-commerce. Like if you had a lamp that you were trying to sell, and so I recommend to clients now, you take those wide shots, but also take those smaller, tighter shots, and you can, maybe get hit on that visual search, which is just incredible.
So, in your experience, are people actually using visual search then, or is this just us marketers using visual search?
I think they are, because, Pinterest they developed it with like Berkeley Labs or something like that. And so, I think the visual search is it's almost scary, how accurate it is. And so I'm, like if I'm talking to people if they have a post about Instagram, or let's say they are doing something about a book, or having somewhere where they have like the Instagram logo where somebody could just like, circle around it, I think matters in search now. And so it's interesting how it's going to develop and how they're going to use it to actually capture data to, sell or use for marketing.
Going back to the search element, obviously on Google there's kind of search engine optimization, SEO strategies. What are the strategies in terms of having your pins picked up by search on Pinterest, in terms of the descriptions and maybe the titles? What sort of things should people be doing to increase the likelihood people will find their pins on search?
One thing that I didn't mention when we were talking at the beginning is the cool thing about Pinterest is Google and Pinterest have a really good relationship. In fact, boards will actually rank on Google. So like if you go, I think it's still up there, but if you search instant Instagram tips, you'll see right at the beginning one of my boards that it's a group board that I share with Peg Fitzpatrick, where we pin Instagram tips, but it's ranked on Google, and we get traffic from Google because of that. So that's something to always keep in mind, that your boards can rank on Google. But to optimize for Pinterest, you want to make sure you have really good titles for your board. So one of the mistakes that new people do when they get on Pinterest, they'll put, they'll make a board called Stuff I Like. Well, that really doesn't, what does that mean for search? Stuff I like. So, I try to make things like, instant Instagram tips, which is pretty specific about what that board is about. So it has keywords in it. You don't want to keyword stuff, but it's a good description of what that board is about. And on your pins, you also want to title them, correctly, and also, use good descriptions, because there's a description field for your pins, and you want to, it's like you're almost writing kind of the same SEO principles that you would use for a blog post or something like that, where you have a good descriptive description in there, and don't keyword stuff to make it read weird, but you want to have some keywords in that description as well.
Okay. Question I have about the same content. Say you've got you've got a blog and you've only got say one post a week that you do. Is it okay to repost that on Pinterest, or how long a period should you wait before you start repinning stuff on boards?
Well, the cool thing is, and part of the strategy that I use for Social Media Examiner, is we have multiple boards that some topics could fit into. So, and what I mean by that is, like, we have a social media marketing board, we have like a blogging tips board, and we have like a visual search marketing board. So let's say I had an article about Instagram. Well, I could pin that to my Instagram board. I could pin it to my visual marketing board, and I could also pin it to just the general category of social media marketing. And so what I do is space those out. So I use a scheduling software called Tailwind, which is incredible, and it lets me actually do that automatically. When I set up the pins, I can just schedule them out to go in like 3 days between each other, or whatever time I want. So that's a strategy you can use, is to pin to different boards, and then I'll go and repin them after a month or so. You can do it probably to the same board, because people won't show up in their feed, and it won't look like you're spamming or just dumping pins in. Also, another option, and a lot of people do this, and especially like Peg Fitzpatrick and Rebecca Radice, they're really, really good at visual marketing. They will actually, for what they call an evergreen post, a post that does well and has really good content that's still relevant today, they'll actually go back to like maybe one a year ago and create a brand new pin for it. Maybe a different image, same title, but just style a little bit different, and pin it again. And that's just another link back to that blog post that's doing well, and kind of gives it a little bit more oomph, I guess, or a little bit more life to it. And it's a really good strategy to use if you have an article that still has some life left in it.
What would you say is the biggest mistake that you see new people on Pinterest making?
Probably uploading an image and not having a link back to anything. So a lot of people will create an image for their website and they'll upload it to Pinterest, but if you don't go back and click the edit button, it will not go anywhere. You've got to put the website in there. That's if you're not using what they call rich pins, and I don't want to get too technical on this one, but rich pins are something you can set up for your site, like using Yoast or something like that actually connect it, give you a little more oomph, keeps people from changing the URLs back to your website. The other big mistake I see with people is they don't check their links to their pins. So I always say that, no matter how pretty a pin is, if it's linking to bad data, it doesn't matter. So if I don't pin anything that's over a year old. It's just because I have an audience that follows me on Pinterest, and I really am always thinking about my audience and trying to give them the most up-to-date information. So flip phones from 2002 isn't relevant anymore. Even if it has a great image, it's not relevant to my audience. So I'm always double-checking the links. So I'll see an image on Pinterest, I'll click on it to make sure it's going to the right site and that it's still relevant information, because and even some of the big people on Pinterest do this. They'll just repin stuff without checking to make sure that data is still correct, and that just bugs me.
No, I mean, that was a mistake that I've made, and I'm sure I probably have still some with bad links, but I did go through quite a lot of looking all the old pins I had. So it's probably better that people start by at least checking all the pins of everything that they repin onto their board.
Because once in a while it'll lead to like spam or something. Somebody will what they call hijack a pin, where they'll change the URL and they'll go to some spammy site. So I'm very concerned about how my audience will see my stuff, and that's also why I go and I mentioned earlier that I have certain people I check almost every day, because I know they do the same thing and they're always pinning quality content, and so it's a little bit easier for me to make sure that those pins are going to where they need to go.
The other thing is that obviously you're managing Social Media Marketing World's Pinterest and Instagram accounts. Is that correct?
That's correct. Uh-huh.
So what would you say to people who say, well, I'm already on Instagram, that's a visual platform, it's the same as Pinterest?
It is and it isn't. One, Instagram is square images. I mean, you can add different ones now. They've made that available, but still most people all post square images. And Pinterest still likes the long ones. Now, you can have some success. I know a lot of people will take some of their Instagram photos and pin them on Pinterest, and especially like quote graphics and stuff. Those still do well. But like it's really interesting. Faces don't do very well on Pinterest. Images with faces, they've had some studies done, and they don't do as well. And like Instagram is the selfie capital of the world. Everybody has selfies on there, and they do well. So that's a difference that you need to keep in mind as well. And also, I think you can pin more on Pinterest than you can on Instagram, since Instagram's still kind of a feed that you scroll up on your phone. It's just one image at a time. I think if you would try to pin as much as you post on Instagram as much as you pin on Pinterest, you get people kind of upset with you.
Yeah, and there's also hashtags, so that it seems to be the total opposite strategy on Pinterest.
Yeah, you don't. And I'm always answering this question. Don't use hashtags on Pinterest. It just doesn't work the same. Pinterest has gone out and said that don't use them, and so what Pinterest says, I tend to try to do. But yeah, Instagram, I think you use up to 30 hashtags, and it's great. Nobody minds. But I've actually had, when I first started using promoted pins, getting them rejected because they've had hashtags in them, and they're saying just don't do it. So yeah, no hashtags on Pinterest.
Yeah, so you mentioned promoted pins there, and obviously that's a whole nother topic, but what's your experience been with promoted pins? And now that they're certainly available in the UK since the start of the year, and they've been available in the US for, about a year and a half, I think now.
Right. Yeah, I really like them. I was hesitant to use them at first because I didn't think they had enough targeting options. I felt I was a little limited in what I could target. I mean, I'm a big fan of Facebook ads because you can really, target down and you upload your email list and target to that. So it was, the Facebook ads were still where I was getting the most bang for my buck. Well, Pinterest now has really opened up and allows you to have a lot more interest you can target, and you can target keywords. And so there's a lot more options you can use, and I'm very, very happy about that. And they actually, they work. They give you a lot more bang for your buck on Pinterest, and you can get some really good traffic out of them. And the cool thing about Pinterest promoted pins is you're only paying for the initial pin. So what that means is if you did a promoted pin and I clicked on it and pinned it to my board, you would be charged for that. But if somebody came to my board and repinned it from me, you don't get charged. And so they're saying like there's an actual, like a 20 to 30%, continuation of that price of that bonus that you get for promoted pins, which is really something you need to think about when you're kind of setting up your budget.
Okay, so that's good to know. How can people find out about Jeff Sieh if they're interested in maybe hiring you or doing some of your training courses or various other things that you're involved in? How can they find out about you?
Sure. The best place to find me is at manlypinteresttips.com, where we're always adding testosterone one pin at a time. And
also, you've got your own podcast. Dare I send people to another podcast? But you've got the Manly Pinterest show, which you
yeah. And it's fun. It's a weekly. I try to do a weekly show on Blab that I convert to a podcast, and we have some great guests on there. And we don't always just talk about Pinterest, but we try to keep it to like visual marketing or social media. So it's a fun. It's as you know, Tim, having these podcasts are pretty fun to do. So I really enjoy it.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please stop by iTunes and rate and leave a review. This helps make the show more visible. For free resources, show notes, and other helpful content, join the community at beginselfpublishing.com.